EP104 of the Conversation with Kase. We are talking about taking leaps of faith in business with my real estate friend, Blake Blahut. I met Blake when we both worked at a real estate brokerage in Orlando several years ago. And since then, he's received numerous accolades, including the Orlando Realtor Association's 20 Under 40 Award, which is awesome. He works with all types of clientele, from first-time homebuyers to corporate attorneys, CEOs, and relocation clients. And he currently serves as the Director of Operations at Realty One Group Inspiration, where he, like myself, mentors newer, younger agents and oversees the brokerage operations with his mother, Teresa Blahut. So may I introduce my friend, Blake Blahut, to the show. Hi, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Case.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Definitely a little bit colder in Orlando today than usual, but otherwise I'm good.
How many degrees is it there? I'm in Atlanta today, so it's like 31 degrees right now.
Well, when I was walking my dog this morning, I think it was like 47 or 48. So I thought that was a bit chilly. It might be in the 50s now, but it was in the 40s this morning.
I mean, that's like being in Antarctica for someone who's from Florida. So, I mean, I'm glad you survived. I'm glad you're okay. You didn't get frostbite. You're here on the show today. I love it. So it's crazy to me because I feel like since the last time we spoke, so much has changed in both of our lives. So I really just want to get right into questions, if you don't mind. I know you've had a
Absolutely.
lifelong connection to real estate. So how did you initially get started in the business?
I actually quite literally grew up around the industry. My mother, Teresa, she has been a broker, manager, corporate trainer for a number of the big brand names in real estate. She's taken me to open houses and showings and offices when, as a kid. And we're very much like basically the same person in many ways. And so it just seemed like a natural fit. And I've been enjoying it ever since.
So your mom used to take you to open houses. Did she make you do things like bake cookies? Like one of my real estate friends said to me that her mom, who was a realtor, used to make her bake cookies in the open houses and like put up balloons and stuff. And I just thought it was cute.
No, no, I mean, I saw that, but I admit I didn't have to do any of that, but she did take me on showings and stuff like that as well. And I kind of saw her, how she would present a property and essentially, present information that would ultimately help them make a decision.
I think that's great that you had that bond with your mother and you were able to be entrenched in that at such a young age, because I know my family, they were all in medicine for the most part. So it was not something, while we would eat dinner, my mother would talk about surgery and stuff you don't want to hear about when you're having like a spaghetti dinner, right? But it wasn't something I could really share with her because it's not like she could take me to the operating room where I could like see what she's so excited about. So I think that's so cool. And growing up in that environment, was it something you always wanted to do? Like, were you like, I want to be a real estate agent like my mom, or did you have another path that you thought that you wanted to follow?
Well, as a kid, like kid, probably like 13 and younger, I wanted to play professional baseball, I admit, because I was really into to sports, especially. But my high school paper that I had as a senior, that my English teacher had asked everyone to write, I actually wrote my paper about becoming a real estate office manager. Well, I said real estate manager, but essentially, managing a real estate company. I knew that I for sure wanted to do sales, just because I felt, I'm a pretty social person naturally. And so I really felt like just, the enjoyment and rewarding feeling of just helping people, as cliche as that might sound. But really, I guess you could say since high school, I for sure knew that it was a career path for me.
That's amazing because not many people know when they're 30 what they want to do when they grow up, let alone like did you ever find that that paper that you wrote, like, because I think that's so cool that so young you were like, this is what I want to do and I'm gonna do it, and now you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I still had that paper. I mean, I could always contact that teacher and see if they still have it. I know they're still teaching, but yeah, no, I admit that a lot of people were talking about becoming, doctors and engineers, and professional football players and whatnot. And mine was about, wanting to be in real estate. And maybe my teacher was like, oh, well, that's a different one.
It is because thinking back to school, I do not remember people being like, oh, I want to be a real estate agent when I grow up. I mean, I started working in real estate really young too. It was a little different for me though. It wasn't that I necessarily said, oh, I want to be a real estate agent. I just knew I wanted to be working in real estate, if that makes sense. So I love the fact that you're so similar to me in that we both kind of knew what we were, the field we were going to be in, and we kind of just went for it. And I what was interesting to me as well is like, I think it was a year or two ago now, I don't remember because 2020 has been like the longest shortest year in the whole time I've been alive. And I remember you asking me about getting your broker's license. So what mindset shift did you have to go to from, being single agent Blake to now managing and overseeing an office?
Really, the mindset in a sense doesn't change too much because the way I see it is, and I really pride myself on really great client service. And so I basically apply that mindset towards the agents. Like, hey, when they're reaching out to me for questions, like just for example, this morning, someone needed some help with a sky slope, which is a back end version that Realty One Group provides. I reach out to them as soon as I possibly can. Just be as diligent as I can. And if I don't know the answer, I will help them find the answer. So I guess in that regard, the mindset is actually very much similar to me as I approach working with my clients. But of course, you have to look at it as, okay, you're essentially helping, right now we're at about 23 agents, these people with their careers. And so the mindset doesn't really change too much other than just the fact that you're helping people with their careers versus making the biggest investment of their life. I think that's the only thing that's different the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest shift that happened for me in my business was when I started focusing on other people's success instead of just my own. And for me, it just became more rewarding. Like, I think I got to a certain point, maybe after like 14 or 15 years, where I was like, okay, I know I could help, the individual consumer, but think of how many more consumers I'm technically helping if I'm helping individuals in real estate develop their professional skills and have the advantages that I didn't have when I started. So I think that's awesome that you've grown such a big team in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So what would you say, what do you feel the number one thing people need to consider when they're thinking about getting their real estate license or starting a career in real estate?
I really think that they just need to kind of do the best they can for planning. A lot of people do preach that, oh, usually their first year in real estate can be rough, and after 2 or 3 years, many might not still be in the business. I really think it's just the things to consider is just making sure you have a strategy, whether you're going to be working full time and then part time, doing real estate while you're trying to kind of get your on your feet. I think a lot of people don't kind of think about that. Sometimes I see some people might take that leap of full time just before they're maybe ready to do it. But I've seen a lot of very successful agents that were, bartenders or waitresses or teachers that they did it part time, and then once they kind of got their footing in the business, became very successful. And I think it's just a lot of times people just need to plan and anticipate the challenges you might face early on until you can kind of establish a book of business for yourself.
Right. I mean, I have a lot of people too who come to me who are part-time, or they kind of have this idea of what they think the business is. And I think it's important, like you said, that people have a strategy and they're also realistic. I mean, there are certain people who come to me and they're like, oh, well, I have this other job and I work it during the week, 9 to 5. And so I'm going to do real estate at like after 5 o'clock and before 9 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, well, who's supporting you to help you do that? Because unless if you have a lot of flexibility or you're able to kind of do both things at the same time, like that could be really challenging, right? So it's
Absolutely.
it's definitely one of those things. I think people talking to individuals who have been in the business a long time, like yourself, and creating that strategy, of course, is really important. So, on that kind of same note, though, like, what do you think the biggest mistake agents make in general? And that could be someone experienced or inexperienced.
Um, I think just holding themselves accountable to what they need to do to get established in the business. A lot of people might get their licenses and like, oh, this is great. Got my cards. I'll pass out a few cards here and there, and the phone is just going to ring. I think a lot of people just assume that because maybe they talk to some experienced professionals that say, well, most of my business is referral, and that's great. But it takes a lot of, it can take a lot of, effort and time. But it can vary for a lot of different people to get to that point to where you get those personal referrals. But you have to be willing to kind of hit the pavement, so to speak. Be willing to do the open houses with some agents that might be letting you to do it at their listings. Hold yourself accountable for prospecting, things like that. Because I think a lot of people they don't realize how much work it actually takes to get an established book of business, and that it could take a year, two, or more to get to that point. But again, everyone's path to getting a book of business in real estate is different and longer or shorter than others.
Right. And sometimes that's the beautiful thing about being in real estate is there's so many ways to be successful, and success does not have to just mean one thing. And that's what I love about it so much. But I agree with you. There are so many individuals, and I don't know if it's because of Bravo and watching some of those shows that people are like, oh, this is going to be easy. I'm going to, make millions of dollars. And, I have so many people who come to me with unrealistic expectations, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I just want to be really real with you. Like, you need to have a multifaceted strategy around this. And especially as we move into the future, in the past couple of years, like, real estate has changed so much. Like, it's more video centric, it's more influencer centric. We're competing with businesses like Redfin and Zillow. I mean, Zillow became a brokerage in Atlanta, which is insane. But it's all the things that we have to do to kind of adapt ourselves into the business, right? So
Absolutely.
I agree with you. People need to just have a really strong strategy and, again, align themselves with people who could help them with that. What do you think the real estate industry and the real estate market's going to be like in 2021?
To be honest, I think we kind of got a glimpse of it in 2020. Um, Digital marketing, we always knew that the industry and most other industries have shifted in that direction. But I think it's becoming more important than ever. And maybe this isn't the right term, but like COVID has amplified that, where sometimes people are literally making decisions of purchasing a house just based off of pictures and virtual showings, which I've had a couple circumstances where people couldn't make it down here from Ohio, New Jersey, to see a house, and I had to, virtually show it to them. So I think that we're going to start seeing more of that, and the presentation of your listings and your content and things like that um, for properties, it's going to be more important than ever that they present themselves the best way digitally, because people might be literally making their decisions based off of those photos, as opposed to, hey, let's fly down to Florida for a weekend and see some properties, because people are starting to think a little bit differently of how they go about purchasing property. But overall, I honestly suspect that 2021, the market's going to be still very active, especially with historically low or close to historically low interest rates, likely to keep the market very enticing for a lot of buyers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the way that we have to work is very different. I think for example, like, if you are going on a listing appointment, I think it's going to become relevant for sellers to want to know, well, if you have a YouTube channel, and how many subscribers do you have, and how are you digitally marketing my home? And it's so funny to me because I've been noticing that more and more, especially in the high end market. And then I was on, I'm sure you're in it. There's the Real Estate Masterminds group on Facebook. I don't know
Yes.
if you've ever seen it, But people sometimes they put stuff in there that's so embarrassing that I'm like, I hope no one like Googles your name because like I would never write that. But sometimes it's mildly entertaining. And like there was someone who just recently like posted about the debate of whether or not you really need to use professional photos to showcase a home. And I'm like, oh my God, really? Like you're actually like that shouldn't even be a question. Like we're not, this is not the year 2000, you know, we it's
Yeah.
nuts. Um, so yeah, I really agree with you that there's going to be a lot of changes, and I think as well, like I believe 2021 with inventory continuing to lower, it's definitely going to spur more and more buyers. I'm interested though to see how markets like New York City, San Francisco, Miami, Chicago, how they start to do next year because there's I don't I you just mentioned you had a lot of people relocating from like Ohio and New Jersey. I'm interested to see how those markets their pricing goes next year, and I'm also interested to see the condo markets because I know, for example, in Atlanta, the condo market's been really stale. And I think it's just because of COVID. I think so many people being quarantined and also being in those metropolitan areas and having to share elevators with people and realizing they wanted more space, it's pushed everyone to looking towards single family homes as well as looking at vacation properties as like primary residence or mostly primary residences. So, do you think that there's going to be some disruption there?
I can see that. I think particularly, but then this is just my opinion on the maybe the high end portion of the market, like in say New York and San Francisco. I think the more affordable price points, whatever is affordable or considered affordable in those markets, will probably stay very active. But condos, in Orlando, we were having a very similar experience here as well, where a lot of the inventory tends to sit longer than say a single family home that's 30 minutes outside of the city. So I think there is, especially for maybe people that might have like a couple who maybe not necessarily have kids or kids yet, that might be both working from home now. And so they want a little bit more space and this, the advantages of like say a single family home. And maybe they were living in the city in a condo or renting a condo because one or both of them was working in the city and they didn't want to commute. But with many people shifting towards work from home, whether it's completely or just partially, it's more enticing to think that, well, they could probably get a better value outside of the city and get more space and they don't have to worry about, commuting in 5 days a week. They're going in once or twice a week or staying home altogether. So, but going into, like the large markets like New York, San Francisco, I personally think that they're going to be active, but I think only in like a very attractive price point. But then again, you'll have to ask Ryan Serhant about that or something.
Yeah, right. I would love to ask Ryan Serhant. Maybe he will be on the show one day. We'll have to see. But
Ooh,
yeah,
I love to see that.
hey, you never know. Um, but I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I still think real estate is going to continue to be a great primary investment for people. I still think the market's going to be strong. It's interesting to see these changes and how we're just going to have to adapt to it, at the end of the day. So, well, part of the conversation with Kase and having inspired business conversations with individuals like yourself is to help our listeners take aligned actions to reach their own goals. So, what would you say to anyone who's looking to make a big pivot or shift in their own business?
I really think that it's just important to engage with, and it might sound so simple, but I think it's really important to engage with other colleagues. Like, for example, in the real estate industry, I'm constantly talking to different individuals because they see, certain trends or different activity within within the market and, different disruptors coming in and seeing them do different things. I think it's important to just be really in tune with the industry and the trends and the changes that are occurring because ultimately, what you're doing now could affect, a big change that could happen in 6 months or 6 years from now with the industry. And so I think it's just really important to pivot towards what you see is trending in your industry.
I think that's great advice. The thing I also love about real estate is you could apply so many business principles in creating a real estate business really to anything. And for me, the thing that's also really changed my business and the way that I look at business is I've always said I never want to be the smartest person in any room. I love to be around people that are smarter than me. You know, there's that saying, you're like the combination of the top 5 people you spend the most time with. And the more that I have tried to invest in my own education and knowledge, whether that's reading a book about a topic I'm interested in, like right now I'm obsessed, like literally obsessed. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I cannot believe it took me so long to read it, but I've been obsessed with this idea of buying multiple investment properties and figuring out how to do it. And because of that, I listened to some podcasts and connected with other people doing the same thing. And so I think that no matter what field you're in, you need to seek out other people who've been successful in it, who are willing to share their experiences in it. Because you're right, like being able to talk to other professionals and listen and get their advice, I think is a great way to educate yourself to make the best decision possible, right?
Oh, I agree. And I mean, just the agents in our office, I've learned a lot just from talking with them. And some of them are more in tune with things, certain aspects of the industry than I am, I'll admit. And so I think it's just important to be constantly keep an ear on the ground, so to speak, but just be constantly engaging with different professionals within the industry, because you never know what you could learn and what type of value that will bring to your individual business, as well as to how to better service your clients as well. So,
Yeah, and not to mention, you might be on the verge of finding out about a business opportunity that is really amazing. I mean, I get pitched all the time on like so many different things, whether people are trying to recruit me or this or that. And I still give people the time to chat with me because you never know. Like, there was someone I spoke with recently who it was kind of obvious what they were trying to do, but at the same time, they shared information with me that was actually very beneficial. And it made me think of like, wow, actually, this could be a good opportunity for me. You know what I'm saying? So I love that. And so this question I like to ask a lot of my friends who own businesses because it's always interesting to see how they respond to it. But as an entrepreneur, what would you say your secret superpower is to keeping your head in the game?
um, and I'm gonna partially piggyback off of my last answer. We're just constantly talking to different individuals within the industry. I mean, I speak to other broker owners, managers, agents around the industry, as well as title agents and loan officers, and just kind of really ask them like, hey, what's changing on your side of things? What are your observations? Because I think that the most valuable thing that you can learn is from other individuals that are experiencing it. You can obviously read different publications and things like that that can talk about different trends in the industry. But I think it's just really important to just be as engaged as possible. And I apologize. I know I was piggybacking off my other answer, but I really feel like that answer is very similar.
Oh no, listen, you could answer however you would like to answer. There's no right or wrong. It's just us talking. So well, Blake, for those of you who would like to get in touch with you and just kind of learn more about you or ask you like any general questions, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Honestly, Instagram. Um, they can find me, broker Blake Blahut, and then the very first thing that'll pop up is this logo right here.
I love it.
And so once they see that, they can message me through there. On there, there's also my contact information, my phone number, email, website. So really through there, they can find other ways to contact me.
Instagram's awesome. And I love seeing your posts and I love how much you engage with your clientele on there. So kudos to you because I know Instagram is tough for some people, but I find it like so fun. And before we go, I wanted to ask you, so this has also been a while. I remember going to your house and you were telling me about things you were going to do to like update it. You own this really cute mid-century home in downtown Orlando. I know you finished it recently. So like how did it go? Like what did you do to it? Where are you at? How's it coming together?
First and foremost, I feel like a house is never fully, completely finished,
No, true.
but I'd say we're about, I'd say we're about like 90% there. Since you had been here, so we had redone the electrical panels. We had redone the kitchen completely. We torn out the wall that was in between the kitchen and the living area to give it a true open concept. We literally tore down a portion of the house. There was a wood frame addition that was done many years ago, and unfortunately, it was deteriorating. So we had tore that part down and rebuilt it with block and with higher ceilings as well. Um, we put in some double pane, low E windows and sliders, new tile throughout the whole area, built in a walk-in closet in the master because that also had an addition, the big addition onto it. And so we had kind of this empty space in there. It's like, well, what do we use for it? An office, or do we just, a drop spot or whatever? So we built a nice walk-in closet, which I was very excited about, and Sabrina was a little bit excited about too. Um,
No, I
yeah,
bet. I
but
remember
yeah,
I remember when because that was one of the rooms you're like, I'm not sure what to do with this. And I was kind of thinking the same thing myself. I'm like, wow, it was a very rectangular big space, but then it became more square when you got to the back of the room. And it felt like two rooms. So I think that's great that you ended up, putting in the closet. And like you said, I'm sure Sabrina's his wife, by the way.
yeah,
So
Sabrina.
he's really excited and happy about that. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then just the last thing to do, really, or the main things to do, are the bathrooms. We put floor in them, but we haven't put like new vanities in them. And the most expensive one of all was the roof. We actually just put a new roof on it earlier this year, and so when we go to sell, whenever that might be, this will probably be a great house for that buyer.
Yeah, it sounds like it. The block homes in downtown Orlando. I have a block home in Winter Park, but it's really close to downtown. And I think they're some of the best properties you could possibly own in that area. They're built like fortresses. And they're great. I love homes with character. So, well, awesome. I just want to thank you again for being with us today. I really hope that I could have you on the conversation again soon. And real quick, for all of you who are listening, if you like today's episode, please follow us whenever you get a chance, wherever you get your podcast, and make sure you leave us a review. The more you interact, the more it helps us organically grow. But until next time, my friends, I will speak with you on the conversation with Kase in the upcoming weeks. Thanks, Blake. It was so nice having you.
Thank you so much, Kase. I really enjoyed speaking with you today.
Awesome. I'll talk to you later.